And we're back. We're back and we're live.
Again, always a question. Are we truly alive?
Anyway, I don't know. I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Playaz. Yeah, we're live. We're still in Vegas. We're still at Pegaworld. Inspire.
So I'll say this. I'm happy we're live.
I am too.
I'm
Yeah.
happy we're at Pegaworld.
I am too. Yes.
However, we're in Vegas.
Yeah.
I'm not happy.
But we're here at Pegaworld. So.
And I'm happy.
And we're going to be really happy because we have another guest for you. Now, this is a guest that I've had a chance and an opportunity to speak to. She's been on a few Good Minutes before. Mm-hmm. This is the first time you're speaking.
Yeah, absolutely is. But I'm already excited because I now know something about her history and lineage, and it involves the New York Giants.
Okay, well, I feel a bit outnumbered, but that's all right. It's better to be outnumbered by Giants than, we go outside and we go in that corridor. We are bound to run into some, Patriots.
Well, the good news is we don't have to even ask the question.
Yeah, that's true.
Guess.
That's true. All right, why don't we just bring her on?
Yeah.
Because she is Tara DeZao. And now she's, like I said, I had an opportunity to speak with you. Come on. Join us. She's unique in the sense that she handles ad tech and martech.
I think that's unique in the entire industry, as far as I know.
It's a lot. I've combined the term into mad tech.
See, that's what I like about it. That's the way to do it. Tara, thank you for joining us. This is great.
Thank you for having me. Fellow former Giants fan.
Well, that's okay. It's fair.
Brent, no. we bonded over a shared dislike of Russell Wilson. So, I just want to congratulate the Denver Broncos on their very expensive. Oh, my mic's falling off.
You see, apparently Russell doesn't like the shade you're throwing.
Yeah, very expensive. It's working out great for them. All of his teammates love him. Anyway, enough about football.
That was awesome. Let me ask you something before we get started. You don't even know where I'm going with this, but I have a really strong like for blueberry bagels.
Okay. Oh my God!
All right.
He thinks they're an abomination. So we need you to kind of break the tie here.
Yeah, I mean,
there's no tie to break.
I don't think they're an abomination, but I'm a purist, plain bagel with cream cheese. So.
Okay.
Okay, you're an interesting case.
Yeah.
She's
not
like
really. She doesn't hate them as much.
No.
She says she doesn't think they're an abomination.
No. Well, I mean, again, part of my, of course, religious belief as a Jewish person is that blueberry bagels are an abomination.
Okay.
But it's in
two of us don't think that.
It's in the Old Testament.
So I think we've outranked you. It's in the Old Testament. Okay.
My Old Testament.
We're glad to have you here for a number of reasons, beyond the mutual hate of Russell.
Yeah.
Being ad tech and martech, you can't go to a conference and talk about generative AI, but we never really had somebody to kind of look at it from your lens.
Sure.
Maybe you talk about just what does Gen AI, ChatGPT, what does that alter, change, impact negatively or positively from the martech and the ad tech perspective?
Yeah, I would say for both ad tech and martech, it certainly optimizes and operationalizes some aspects of the creative process, right? So I'll just take, for example, let's go back in our time machine like 6 years.
A hot tub time machine?
Hot tub time machine. We're going back, and you release a campaign across multi-channels, and you realize that there is a typo in your ad unit. You have to pull it down. You have to send it back to creative. You have to get the new approvals through. You might have to talk to a bunch of different organizations depending on who's operating your paid media channels versus owned. But with something like Gen AI that's sort of can develop marketing treatments on the fly, you're not going to have those issues of having to wait 3 or 4 days before you can relaunch the campaign, right? You can If you catch something that you need to change, you can take it down immediately and put it back up immediately. It's a scalability benefit that I think, a lot of what this conference is about is the benefits of scaling your business and doing the things that you want to do with AI. So Gen AI for marketers and ad people, similar scalability benefits.
So let me ask you, so when you're looking at marketing, you're looking at advertising, it's ultimately the purpose of it is to engage.
Yes.
Okay. And it engages, it used to be people think first level, but it's engaged all throughout.
Yes.
All right. Now, here's the thing though. You generate something from using generative AI.
Yeah.
Do you look at it and say, or do you look at it and say, oh, I'm going to need to make a lot of changes here? I mean, how are you getting it to be engaging to, and let's even look at it from the standpoint of Pega. How do you get it to be engaging on a one-to-one basis, but it's still being generated by AI who isn't looking at the one, but they're looking at the characteristics of maybe many that apply to one, in a manner of speaking. How's that work?
Yeah, I think that even though it's AI, it's a partnership between humans and AI, right? Like we're giving the AI the tools to make the creative in that instance that I talked about earlier. And I think the point of having a well-oiled mad tech stack with AI is that you figure out when a human has to come back and engage, right? You figure out, these treatments aren't working, and you find that out immediately. Like, this is not engaging for Paul. He does not like the Jets.
I don't hate them.
It's,
I don't hate them. I have to.
Yeah, but you find out immediately, right. Whereas, before AI-powered decisioning and things like that, you'd have to wait a week or two to get your results back and figure out, okay, this resonated, this didn't. So I think when you have like real-time streaming data that you can look at and take advantage of, then you can really hone in on the one-to-one journey and figure out, hey, we put this consumer on the wrong journey. Let's quickly pivot and make sure they get on the right journey.
Okay. Talk about the difference you're talking about the ability to do things so much faster and quicker.
Yes.
And it reaches more. What do companies need to know in order to really be able to take full advantage of this? What are the things they have to put in place or change to be able to really handle this?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is to get your engagements as close to real time as possible, because if you think about how you personally engage on the web, like almost sometimes 5 minutes, it's past, right? So really as close as you can get to real time, and that's backed by things like AI that can scale quickly, that's what you want. If you're looking at data from yesterday, that customer's moved on. They might have went on your website and tried to apply for a mortgage and maybe, certain things happened, but you don't actually get to find out what happened until the next day. It's done. They've already applied to 3 other.
Right.
You know what I mean? God, what is going on with my mic? Audio
We didn't
problems.
tell you that was a trick mic.
I know, right? It's cute. It's little. It's mini.
Completely wired to Russell Wilson.
Oh my God, he is. He's listening to me.
So here's the interesting thing to me then. Operating in real time.
Yeah.
Customers responding or not. You're pulling it or continuing it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if you go back in history, but not as far back as you went, we all of a sudden saw the rise of CDPs.
Yes.
Right? And
yes.
CDPs were ultimately dynamic databases, right? And when I say that, meaning things were moving through it in as close to real time as possible for action to be taken. With generative AI, a lot of it is pull in, push out, meaning you're experimenting.
Yeah.
Let's call it quickly.
Sure.
But CDPs you got to put the data somewhere, right? And and the actions that are being taken have to be recorded in some way. And CDPs are in play. Nobody I've heard, literally no one, has talked about generative AI and CDPs and how they're going to, in effect, interrelate. Is it simple? Does anything change?
I would say that when you talk about generative AI, there's something coming out of it, right?
Right.
So whether that's,
Right.
interaction between the code and the process and the person, or whether that's, Chat GPT, hey, will you write me an essay for school?
Okay.
With CDPs, basically their role is to organize and clean and centralize data. So really, it's just one part of your mad tech stack. And what's happening now is that with AI connectivity within CDPs, the data is able to flow and end up in multiple parts of the organization more quickly. So I would say that, it's same house that they live in, but different bedrooms.
Okay.
All right, now this is cool because when we've talked to a number of people, a lot of them on like the CX side, more on customer service, and contact center, call it like that. A lot of the focus is on productivity, efficiency. People are trying to figure out how many folks can we cut. That kind of conversation. But it seems like from marketing and advertising, it's more about the ability to find out what really works and having more concrete data to figure that out. So what are the things that you're hearing from your Pega customers who are really interested in learning more about Gen AI from a marketing and advertising perspective? What are kind of their concerns, or what are the things that they're really focused on? Is it just measurement, or is it how do we use this to do things that we maybe never even thought we could, but now there's the possibility of this happening?
Yeah, I think it's similar to all new technologies that enter the mad tech universe, which is kind of test and learn. Everyone's testing and learning. There's certain things that are going to go well, and there's certain things that aren't going to go well, and we're going to find all of that out here soon. It's funny because with Gen AI hype, sort of things have already evolved so quickly over the last 3 months that things we were talking about back then we're not talking about now. One of the fears is being realized is brand abuse. So I'll give an example of a stock photography company that Gen AI was training on images from this stock photography company and ended up capturing a watermark in one of the photos. And if you're familiar with Gen AI photos, they kind of can look horrific when they're human, or like fingers look, weird and mangled. And so when a photo like that goes out with your watermark on it, and you sell stock photography, that's not great.
That really happened?
It actually did happen, and I'm just not mentioning the brand name, but you can Google it. Yeah.
I would assume that's one of the bigger things when you look at this stuff from a marketing and advertising. The hallucinations, the creativity. A lot of people focus on how you're able to just tell it a few words and you come up with these beautiful images.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than just that.
There is. And if you think about too, all of AI is only as good as the data that you put into it.
Right.
And for example, on ChatGPT, data only goes up to 2021. So we're missing 2 years of data. That's like a lifetime in marketing. That's wow.
Well, how much data gets created every day beyond what was there before?
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Totally.
And with ChatGPT, there's more stuff being created now than ever, even like last week, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So there's a lot missing.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. So we were at Pros Outperform, and Dr. Michael Wu did an interview with us on the hallucinatory side of generative AI. And I went back and I think I used Bing for it, but I just said, tell me the books that I've written.
Yeah.
And it gave me a very authoritative list of books, 2 of which I never wrote and don't even exist.
Sure.
With descriptions of the books.
Yeah.
And if I didn't know me, And there's always a question as to whether I really do.
Yeah.
Right? If I didn't know me, I would say, oh, he wrote them too. But I literally looked for them thinking, okay, different Paul Greenberg, just the name of a book.
Yeah.
No, these don't even exist. It gave them the titles, the descriptions were, and again, one of the things Michael pointed out is they sound incredibly authoritative.
Yes.
Marketing literally depends on how much of it ultimately it's most successful when you believe it.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of the issues with marketing are the lack of believability.
Sure.
Right? Or the suspicion of motive.
Right.
Those things.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're dealing with generative AI and you're dealing with the ability to hallucinate and it's coming with these authoritative lies, basically.
Yeah.
Right? How do you even consider that other than you have to have a fairly heavy human operation of human beings who are
Yes.
looking at the content for its what do they call it? Not its viability, but its believability.
Yeah. You know, at Pega, we talk a lot about responsible AI, and part of having responsible AI is human oversight. So it's, like I said before, it's a partnership between people and technology. It's a tool to help us be more productive and optimize things. It's not meant to replace human beings, for sure.
No, I understand that, but I want to follow it further because the need to oversee it, wouldn't that add, basically, it takes away some of the speed because you have to see it and you have to spend the time to read it. And you have to
Yes.
spend the time to verify something
Sure.
that it's saying,
Yeah.
which you may or may not know, right? But you still have to verify because
Yeah.
it's claiming a fact and it's going into your marketing collateral, your campaigns or whatever,
Yeah.
or your conversation, whatever it's running. But doesn't that sort of, I'm with you. Look,
Yeah.
for me, it's an augmentation. It's a tool for augmentation.
Yes.
But it's also adding that. Now, the proposal that Michael was the kind of guardrails that basically were able to tell the AI, look, if it's not true, don't hallucinate.
Yeah.
Now, on the tech side, have you guys developed something like that where it basically will say to a ChatGPT or Bard or whoever, look, here's the story. You are generating, we get it. But there's a limit to what we will allow you to generate.
Sure.
It won't be zero.
Yes.
We'll allow you to generate, because it's not generative, it's zero. But we'll allow you to generate up to the level of actual truth and stop there.
Yeah, there has to be rules and applicability, right? There's, especially in marketing and customer engagement, there's regulation. There's, ways that certain industries are allowed to communicate with customers versus others. So you always have to have the rules defined and make sure that the engagement is applicable to the person.
Mhm.
So that's going to keep everything on the up and up.
Do you have that built in?
We absolutely do.
Good for you.
Cool.
Yes.
So
All right.
you're ahead of most.
So there's a lot of excitement, a lot of interest. I'm sure your customers are here asking you all sorts of things. What are some of the things that maybe a misperception or two that they have about this area? Or what is something that they don't know that they really should know?
I would say that a lot of organizations hedge on making transformational changes to their organizations because they're maybe not informed or it seems overwhelming. And I think there's a pervasive view that we have to just do all of this at once. We have to rip everything out and then put something else back in. And really, that's not the truth. You can crawl before you walk. You can do a phased approach to transforming your organizations. You need to have cultural buy-in and leadership buy-in. It has to be something that is developed collaboratively over time. And certainly businesses rip and replace, but you don't have to do that, especially if, it depends on your budget, it depends on your risk appetite and things like that. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
So one thing I always, my degrees are in journalism and English, right? And one thing that I always fascinated with was advertising. And the reason I was fascinated with it wasn't because it was advertising, but because it was so incredibly creative.
Yes.
It's genuinely iconically creative. At times, it literally creates iconic things
Yes.
that are just marvels. Right now, the interesting thing is, if you're using a generative AI, I mean, I guess you can call the hallucinations creative because they're literally inventing something that doesn't exist.
Sure.
But I noticed, like, for example, with Bing AI, you get creative is what they call it. Then they call it regular or something like that, or normal, and then they call it tight, or it's more control.
Oh, sure.
But really, what that is more language oriented. It's more like, am I going to be more colloquial?
Oh, sure.
Right, versus am I
Yeah.
going to be very rigidly committed to the buzzwords, basically.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about creative here. So
Yeah.
you're taking generative AI, you're building out an ad, not an ad campaign.
Yes.
You're building out an ad. How creative is it really? And is it? I mean, this is obviously a little bit of a bigger question.
Yeah.
I mean, how creative is generative AI really is what I'm sort of saying, but how creative is that ad going to be?
Well, so that's an interesting question and point. And if you think about dynamic creative optimizers technologies, you still have to feed in parts of the creative, right? And that requires a human being to, create. It requires a human being to oversee the tone. And I do think that ultimately humans are more creative than AI.
Amen.
And I think that, I'm a writer. I don't want AI writing my articles for me.
Thank you.
Do I want them to put together an outline for me?
Yeah.
Yes. So there's saving me an hour of not having to put together an outline. But ultimately, I think there are always going to be engagements and things where people are going to want a human touch. But AI is really here to help us make it better, make the experience better over time.
Nice.
Yeah.
One last thing for me. I was at Connections last week, and we had a chance to speak with John Tashik over at Salesforce. He made an interesting point about, when you start going down the road with a lot of this technology, one of the things that he is really focused on, or he thinks about, is the biases that are inherently baked in. And I think his words were, we have to get this right, because the biases in technology have turned off a whole group of people.
Yeah.
So how do we avoid turning off a whole group of people by making sure that there's a mechanism for handling these biases that some people just don't, there's a kind of a small group, relatively speaking, of people working on these technologies, so that the potential is there that even they don't know that they're feeding in some of their subconscious things that go into this stuff that millions upon billions of people are already starting to use.
Absolutely.
So how do we guard against that?
Yeah, I think that's a huge fear, and it's well-founded. A lot of the bias stems from the data itself, right? So I would say that an organization's number one thing that they need to focus on before having AI come into the picture is making sure their data is fresh, it's clean, it's free of bias. We want the algorithms to be transparent, so that if Brent applies for a credit card and gets turned down, but Paul gets accepted, we can see how the AI made that decision. The fear, I think, is that there's a whole group of people that are only going to be handled by AI, and then there's a group of people that are going to be handled by humans. And certainly, things are not always black and white. We may need to have exceptions. So we want to be able to see why those systems made those decisions. So we want to weed out opaque algorithms, essentially. And that means that organizations have to work together to sort of say, we're going to expose this transparency to you.
I think there should be, remember when years ago when everyone was looking at UI, UX, and they had all these experiments where, you put like a hat on and you would look at a screen and
Yeah.
it had sensors. And during that era, though, they created a consortium of technology companies to come up with the standards for it.
Yes.
And then you had WWDC, for the web and so on and so forth. Should there be a standards body for this?
I would say I do think that, but I think more realistically, there should be, a group that agrees on frameworks and comes together and says, hey, this is what we're working with. In advertising, we had the Internet Advertising Bureau,
Right.
and that was sort of like, we could never get a standard of what attribution or measurement should be, but we essentially put out a guide, best practices. This is what we think is fair. This is what we think should happen. And so that's more what I think we're going to get closer to, is a sort of guiding set of principles to avoid some of these unsavory situations.
Well, we are so thankful that you came over, and you don't have to worry about AI jamming some kind of bias down your throat when it comes to Russell Wilson, because it's out in the open.
His data speaks for itself.
And on that note, thank you to Tara DeZao for
Thank you
joining us.
so
This has
much.
been great.
Thank you for having
and
me.
We will talk to you again, because we already know you're not a Patriots fan.
Right.
For sure.
So that makes it so easy.
Absolutely.
And that was, again, and you're in the Giants fan family.
Family. Yep. Giants fan adjacent.
Perfect.
Yep.
And she-
Giants fan.
Just like you fit right in between us with the blueberry bagels.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right in the middle.
Well, not really. You still don't like them.
I would eat them,
You
like
would?
if there was not another choice.
So that's like eating a snail, like eating snails if you hate them, but you have no other food.
I would prioritize it over like an onion or garlicky situation.
Really?
Yeah, because then it stays with you all
Didn't
day.
you said you were Jewish, right?
No, I'm Italian,
Oh.
but garlic,
Yeah, well, that's even that.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't like garlic?
I love it, but
No, but why would you-
things change as you get
How about
older.
a
You can't
garlic-
always eat
a
everything you
garlic
used to be able
bagel
to.
and an onion bagel?
I just don't want to have that sitting with me for the rest of the day.
Oh, you just don't like the fact that it lasts.
It lasts.
Yeah.
Let
no,
me
it does.
ask you this.
Yeah,
There's 3 bagels that have been placed in front of you.
I like where you're going.
One's a
People
garlic,
walk
Yeah.
into a bar.
one's an onion,
Yeah,
And one's plain.
and one's a blueberry.
One's
Okay.
Which one is Tara going to take?
it's going to be the blueberry.
And on that note, folks,
It's all right. I know your preference.
we'd like to thank Tara DeZao for making my day just now.
She also managed to make mine by saying her actual preference is a plain
Well,
bagel with cream cheese.
Neither here nor there.
With cream
On
cheese.
behalf of Tara DeZao, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players. And don't worry, we'll be back in 30 minutes with Francis Carton. I like
Give
him.
or take.
I like him unless, you know.
Yeah. Well, we'll find that
We'll
out.
find that out in 30 minutes.